Hello fellow time travelers. Tonight we whisk you to a Viking longhouse in 980 AD, where the air hums with chaos and the mead flows like a river in spring. Picture this. You're standing on a frost-kissed hill in Scandinavia, the northern lights flickering like a cosmic campfire above. A wooden longhouse looms before you, its thatched roof sagging under snow, smoke curling from a hole in the center. Laughter and shouting spill out, loud enough to scare off a troll. You push open the heavy door, and, bam, you're hit with a wall of heat, sweat, and the sweet tang of fermented honey. Welcome to the party, time traveler. You probably won't get out of this without a massive headache and a few injuries. However, when you finally make it out, I'll have a legendary story about Loki and Thor waiting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell so you'll always know when we are off to a new time-traveling adventure together. In return, I promise to stand out by offering you the most interesting and valuable content guaranteed to help you drift off to a peaceful sound sleep. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see where our fellow travelers are tuning in from. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's time-traveling journey together. You step inside, boots crunching on the straw-strewn floor, and the longhouse assaults your senses. It's a single, cavernous room, maybe 60 feet long, with a roaring fire pit running down the center like a dragon's spine. The flames cast shadows on timber walls carved with runes and tangled beasts. Benches line the edges, packed with Vikings, men with braided beards, women with glinting brooches, all red-faced and hollering. The air is thick with smoke, roasted meat, and that honeyed mead scent. You blink, trying to get your bearings, but there's no pause button here. A woman with a fur cloak thrusts a drinking horn into your hands before you can dodge. "Drink," she bellows, her voice cutting through the din like an axe through kindling. The horn's heavy, sloshing with golden liquid that smells like summer and regret. You hesitate, but the crowd's eyes are on you, gleaming with expectation. Vikings didn't mess around with hospitality. Refusing a drink was like spitting on their ancestors. Historians agree that mead, made from fermented honey, was the lifeblood of Viking feasts, often spiked with herbs or berries for extra kick. This isn't your craft brewery's honey ale. It's potent, cloudy, and probably brewed in a cauldron that's seen better days. You take a sip, and it's sweet fire, warming your throat and making your head buzz like a beehive. The woman grins, revealing a gap where a tooth should be, and claps you on the shoulder hard enough to rattle your spine. Before you can catch your breath, another Viking, a guy with a scar zigzagging across his cheek, shoves past, slopping more mead into your horn. "To Odin!" he roars, raising his own drink. The room echoes, horns clinking, and you're swept into the toast whether you like it or not. You're not sure if it's the mead or the sheer volume, but the longhouse feels like it's spinning. You try to edge toward a bench, hoping for a moment to process, but the crowd's a living beast, jostling you deeper into the fray. A kid, no older than 10, darts underfoot, nearly tripping you. He's carrying a pitcher of mead, because apparently even the children are in on this. Here's a quirky tidbit. Viking longhouses weren't just homes, they were party central, workplace, and barn all in one. Cows and goats sometimes bunked at one end, adding their own perfume to the mix. You glance toward the shadowed corners and, yep, there's a goat chewing on something that looks suspiciously like a warrior's boot. You stifle a laugh. Modern problems like Wi-Fi outages have nothing on sharing your living room with livestock. Another Viking, this one with a beard like a bird's nest, stumbles into you, apologizing by, you guessed it, offering more mead. Your horn's already full, but he pours anyway, liquid splashing onto your boots. You're starting to suspect this is less hospitality and more a test of your endurance. The fire crackles, sending sparks toward the rafters, and someone starts chanting a song about a sea serpent. You're caught in the current of it all, a time traveler adrift in a sea of mead and madness. Your head's fuzzy, your hands sticky, and you're pretty sure you've been here 5 minutes but already toasted to every Norse god twice. You dodge a flung chicken bone and wonder how you'll survive the night. Spoiler, it's only going to get wilder. You're still reeling from the Longhouse's chaotic welcome, your boots sticky with spilled mead and your head buzzing like a swarm of lazy bees. The fire pit's glow paints the room in flickering gold, and the air's so thick with smoke and laughter you can barely think. You clutch the drinking horn, its weight a constant reminder of the Vikings' relentless hospitality. Just as you consider sneaking toward a quieter corner, good luck with that. A burly Viking looms before you. He's built like a barrel, with arms that could probably bench press a long ship. His beard's braided with tiny silver beads that clink as he moves, and his eyes glint with a mix of mischief and menace. "You, stranger," he booms, voice rumbling over the din like distant thunder. Before you can blink, he thrusts a fresh mead horn into your free hand. "Great, now you're dual-wielding. Drink deep," he commands, planting himself so close you can smell the honey and herbs on his breath. Refusing isn't an option, his stare says he'd take it personally, and you're not keen on testing a Viking's feelings. You raise the new horn, the mead sloshing dangerously, and take a gulp. It's sweeter than the last, with a tart edge that makes your tongue tingle. Historians note that Viking mead varied wildly. Some batches were smooth, others could double as paint thinner. This one's potent enough to make your knees wobble, and you're pretty sure it's not just the alcohol. The Viking grins, revealing teeth stained from years of this stuff, and slaps your back. Your spine protests, but you manage a weak smile. "He's not done with you. Name's Bjorn," he says, leaning in like your old pals. "You look like you've never tasted proper mead before." You open your mouth to protest, maybe mention that craft brewery you hit last summer, but Bjorn's already pouring more into your horn from a clay jug. Mead splashes over the rim, soaking your sleeve. You're starting to feel like a human sponge. "Drink again," he insists, raising his own horn. The crowd around you catches on, chanting "Skål! Skål!" like it's a battle cry. You're trapped in a mead-fueled spotlight, and every eye's waiting for you to chug. You take another sip, the sweetness now edging toward overwhelming, and the room cheers like you've slain a dragon. Bjorn's still hovering, regaling you with a story about the time he wrestled a bear and won, probably exaggerated, but with those arms, who's arguing? He punctuates every sentence by clinking his horn against yours, sloshing more mead onto the floor. You're trying to keep up, nodding politely, but your head's spinning faster than a fidget spinner in its prime. Here's a zany detail. Vikings sometimes added bog myrtle to their mead for flavor and a mild hallucinogenic kick. You're starting to wonder if Bjorn's batch has an extra dose, because the Longhouse walls seem to ripple like a bad acid trip. You glance around, desperate for an escape, but the crowd's a wall of fur cloaks and sweaty faces. A woman nearby starts singing, her voice high and haunting, and someone else bangs a drum, the rhythm matching your racing pulse. Bjorn's still talking, now about a raid on some distant shore, and his gesturing so wildly his mead flies in an arc, narrowly missing your face. You dodge, but another Viking, some guy with a helmet that's definitely seen better days, misinterprets your move as enthusiasm and refills your original horn. You're juggling 2 full horns now, and you're not sure whether to laugh or cry. Modern problems, like juggling coffee and a phone, have nothing on this. Historians still debate whether Viking feasts were more about bonding or showing off, But right now, it feels like both. Bjorn's mead pushing is a flex, his wealth, his generosity, maybe even his ability to stay upright after 10 horns. You're not sure you're passing the test. Your stomach's gurgling, your hands are sticky, and Bjorn's already waving for a servant to bring another jug. To Thor, he roars, and the room erupts again. You raise a horn, honestly, you're not sure which one, and sip, praying for a distraction. The fire crackles, the goat in the corner bleats, and you're pretty sure you just saw someone trip over a shield. This is Viking hospitality at its finest, and you're drowning in it. You're still wobbling from Bjorn's relentless mead assault, both hands weighed down by drinking horns that seem to refill themselves like some cursed Viking magic trick. The Longhouse is a swirling storm of noise and heat, the fire pit's flames licking the air and casting wild shadows on the rune-carved walls. Your head's buzzing louder than a hornet's nest, and your sleeves are soaked with mead. Honestly, you're one splash away from being a walking brewery. You try to weave through the crowd, hoping to find a bench or at least a wall to lean against, but the Vikings are a human tide, jostling and shouting. Every step you take, someone new thrusts a horn at you, grinning like they're doing you a favor. Drink, friend. A woman with braids coiled like snakes hollers, slopping more mead into your already full horn. You mumble something incoherent, which she takes as agreement, and the crowd roars its approval. You dodge a flailing arm, someone's reenacting a battle with a chicken leg, and nearly trip over a pile of shields stacked like forgotten dinner plates. The Longhouse is a sensory overload. The air's thick with smoke, roasted boar, and that ever-present honeyed tang of mead. You catch a whiff of something earthier, probably the goat in the corner, still chewing on that warrior's boot from earlier. Historians note that longhouses were the heart of Viking communities, often housing entire extended families under one roof. This one's packed with at least 50 people, plus livestock, and it's a miracle the walls haven't burst from the sheer energy. You're starting to think modern apartment living isn't so bad, even with noisy neighbors. Another Viking, this one with a face like a weathered cliff, grabs your arm and pulls you toward a bench. Sit. Drink, he barks, shoving yet another horn your way. You're running out of hands, so you wedge one horn under your armpit, praying it doesn't spill. The mead's starting to taste like liquid regret, but you sip anyway, because refusing feels like signing up for a duel. The guy's already telling you about his cousin's shipwreck, gesturing so wildly he nearly knocks over a pitcher. You nod, trying to look interested, but your eyes are darting for an exit. Spoiler, there isn't one. The Longhouse door is blocked by a knot of Vikings arguing over who can throw an axe farther. Here's an outlandish trivia question. Did you know Vikings sometimes used mead to settle disputes? Answer: true. Offering a drink could diffuse a fight, though you're betting it started just as many. You're living proof, as every mead-pushing Viking seems to think you're their new best friend. You stumble past a group playing some kind of dice game, bones clattering on a wooden table. One player, losing badly, slams his fist down and demands a rematch, sealed with, you guessed it, a round of mead. Someone hands you a horn to toast the bet, and you're starting to wonder if you've been cursed by Loki himself. The fire's heat is making you sweat, or maybe it's the mead, which is hitting you like a longship at full sail. You try to set one horn down, but a kid, no older than 12, with a grin like he's planning a prank, snatches it and refills it before you can blink. For Freya, he chirps, scampering off. You're surrounded by chaos. A woman singing a song about a storm-tossed voyage, a guy's juggling knives, badly, and someone snoring under a bench, oblivious to it all. You're tempted to join him. Modern life stresses, like dodging spam emails, seem downright quaint compared to dodging mead horns. Historians still wonder how Vikings stayed functional with all this drinking, but you're guessing sheer stubbornness. You're barely keeping up, and you've only been here, what, an hour? Your stomach's staging a revolt, and your head feels like it's hosting its own Viking raid. You sidestep a spilled pitcher and nearly crash into a woman carving a wooden spoon, who offers you mead for good luck. You're starting to think luck is the only thing keeping you upright. The Longhouse's pulse is relentless, and you're caught in its rhythm, a time traveler swept away in a smoky, mead-soaked storm. You're staggering through the Longhouse, a mead-soaked survivor in a sea of Viking revelry, your hands cramped from clutching two drinking horns that never seem to empty. The firepit's glow bathes the room in a hazy amber, and the air's a heady mix of smoke, sweat, and that relentless honeyed mead scent. You're dodging elbows and spilled pitchers, your boots sticking to the straw-strewn floor like it's been glazed with regret. Just as you think you might sneak a moment to breathe, a deep voice cuts through the chaos like a war horn. "Stranger! To me!" You turn, and there he is, the chieftain, perched on a carved wooden chair at the far end of the Longhouse, his presence commanding the room like a storm cloud. He's broad-shouldered, with a silver-streaked beard and a cloak pinned by a brooch the size of your fist. His eyes lock onto you, and you feel like a deer caught in a hunter's sights. You weave through the crowd, Vikings parting like waves before a long ship. The chieftain raises a massive drinking horn, its rim studded with bronze, and gestures for you to approach. "A guest in my hall," he declares, his voice booming over the din. The room quiets, all eyes on you, and you're suddenly aware of how sticky your hands are. He stands, towering over you, and thrusts his horn forward. "Drink to our half." You're already juggling two horns, but refusing a chieftain's toast is probably a one-way ticket to Valhalla, or at least a very awkward night. You fumble, tucking one horn under your arm, and accept his. The mead inside is darker, richer, with a spicy kick that makes your eyes water. You sip, and the crowd roars, the chieftain grinning like you've passed some unspoken test. He claps a heavy hand on your shoulder, nearly sending you to your knees. "I am Harold," he says, "and you're welcome here, if you keep drinking." The crowd laughs, and someone refills your original horns before you can protest. Historians note that Viking chieftains used feasts to cement alliances and show power, often bankrupting themselves to keep the mead flowing. Harold's clearly no exception. His hall's a testament to wealth, from the tapestries on the walls to the silver rings glinting on his fingers. You're starting to see why Bjorn and the others are so mead-obsessed. It's practically the currency of status here. Harold pulls you to sit beside him, on a bench draped with furs that smell faintly of damp dog. He's already launching into a story about a raid on a Frankish village, his hands gesturing like he's swinging an axe. You nod, trying to keep up, but your head's swimming, either from the mead or the sheer volume of his voice. He pauses to toast you again, and you raise a horn. Which one? Who knows anymore? The mead sloshing onto your lap. Here's a quirky tidbit. Viking chieftains sometimes gifted drinking horns to loyal followers, but you're hoping Harold doesn't expect you to carry 3 of these things home. You're barely managing as it is. The Longhouse is still a whirlwind. Someone's wrestling in the corner, a woman's shouting about a lost bet, and that goat's now eyeing a discarded bread loaf. You're tempted to trade places with it. Harold's still talking, now about a storm that nearly sank his fleet, and he keeps clinking his horn against yours, each toast a fresh excuse to drink. You're starting to feel like a prop in his performance, but the crowd loves it, chanting "Skål" every time you sip. Modern life's awkward moments, like forgetting someone's name at a party, have nothing on being the chieftain's new drinking buddy. Historians still debate whether Viking feasts were more about unity or rivalry, but right now, it feels like Harold's showing off his generosity and testing your stamina. You're barely keeping pace, your stomach gurgling like a distant thunderstorm. Another Viking, maybe Harold's brother, stumbles over and pours more mead into your horn, laughing when it overflows. You're drowning in hospitality, and Harold's already calling for another round. The fire crackles, the crowd surges, and you're wondering how you'll survive the chieftain's welcome. One thing's clear, there's no escaping the mead. You're still reeling from the chieftain's thunderous welcome, perched on a fur-draped bench beside Harold, who's gesturing wildly as he recounts another tale of raids and glory. Your hands are a sticky mess, juggling 3 mead horns now, each one heavier than the last, their contents sloshing with every cheer from the crowd. The Longhouse is a pulsing beast, its fire pit spitting embers that dance in the smoky air, mingling with the sweet, heavy scent of mead and roasted meat. You're starting to think you've been marked by some Norse god for eternal drinking, because every Viking in this hall seems determined to keep your horns full. You shift, trying to ease the ache in your arms, when a grizzled warrior with a face like weathered leather plops down beside you. You look thirsty, stranger. He grins, shoving yet another horn your way. You're running out of limbs, but the crowd's watching, and you've learned by now that saying no isn't in the Viking playbook. Before you can protest, the warrior launches into a story about outwitting a sea serpent, his voice rising over the Longhouse's din, and then, he says, eyes wide, I stabbed its eye with my spear. He mimes the thrust, nearly knocking your horns over. The crowd hoots, and someone refills your mead, because apparently every tale deserves a toast. You sip, the honeyed burn now familiar, though your head spinning like a longship caught in a whirlpool. Historians note that storytelling was central to Viking culture, often paired with feasts to honor gods or ancestors. This guy's tale is probably half fiction, but the mead makes it sound epic, and you're nodding along like you believe every word. Another Viking, a woman with a scar curving across her cheek, joins in, claiming she once wrestled a wolf and won. She hands you more mead, insisting it's wolf's blood for strength. You're not sure if she's joking, but you drink anyway, and the crowd cheers like you've just joined their saga. The stories grow wilder: trolls, giants, a cow that swam across a fjord, and each one comes with a fresh pour. You're drowning in mead and mythology, your horns refilled faster than you can blink. Here's a zany detail. Vikings sometimes believed mead was a gift from Odin, brewed from the blood of a wise god. No wonder they treat it like liquid gold. You're half expecting them to start worshipping your sticky hands. You try to set a horn down, just for a second, but a kid with a mischievous grin snatches it, tops it off, and hands it back. For Thor's hammer, he chirps, darting into the crowd. You're starting to suspect these Vikings have a bet going on how much you can drink before you faceplant. The Longhouse is a whirlwind. Someone's banging a drum, a woman singing about a lost love, and that goat, yep, still there, is now nibbling a discarded cloak. Modern life's chaos, like dodging notifications on your phone, feels like a vacation compared to this. You're tempted to hide under a bench, but the warriors are watching, their stories growing louder, each one demanding another toast. Historians still wonder how much of Viking lore was born from mead-fueled boasting, but right now, you're living the answer. Your stomach's staging a full-on rebellion, and your head feels like it's hosting a tiny Viking raid. Another storyteller, a skinny guy with a beard like a tangled fishing net, starts a tale about a cursed sword, pausing to clink his horn against yours. Mead sloshes onto your lap, and you stifle a groan. You're caught in a cycle of tales and toasts, each story taller, each horn heavier. The fire crackles, the crowd surges, and you're wondering if you'll ever escape this mead-soaked saga. One thing's certain, these Vikings could out-talk and out-drink anyone, and you're their unwilling guest of honor. You're still trapped in the Longhouse's feverish grip, your head spinning from a relentless parade of Viking stories and the 3 mead horns you're somehow juggling. The fire pit's glow casts flickering shadows on the timber walls, and the air's a thick stew of smoke, roasted meat, and that cloying mead scent that's practically glued to your skin. You're sticky, woozy, and starting to think you've been cursed to carry these horns for eternity, like some Norse version of Sisyphus. The crowd's a roaring sea of fur cloaks and flushed faces, and just when you think you might catch a breather, a woman steps into your path. She's wiry, with hands stained from work and a grin that says she knows something you don't. "You've not tasted my mead yet," she declares, her voice cutting through the din like a well-aimed arrow. Before you can dodge, she's thrusting a clay mug at you, because apparently horns aren't enough. She introduces herself as Astrid, the hall's master brewer, and her pride in her craft is palpable. Honey from the hills, berries from the forest, she boasts, ticking off ingredients like a chef on a cooking show. You half expect her to whip out a Viking Yelp review. You take the mug, because what choice do you have? The mead's a deep amber, flecked with tiny bits of something, herbs, maybe, and it smells like summer and trouble. You sip, and it's smooth, tart, with a warmth that curls in your chest. Astrid watches, hawk-like, as you swallow. "Good, eh?" she says, not really asking. You nod, and the crowd cheers, because apparently everything you do is a performance now. Historians note that brewing was often women's work in Viking society, and a skilled brewer like Astrid could hold serious sway in a hall like this. She's not done with you. Astrid pulls you toward a corner where clay jugs line the wall, each sealed with wax and marked with runes. "This one's got heather," she says, pouring a sample into your mug before you can protest. "This one's got bog myrtle, makes you see stars." You're already seeing stars, but you sip anyway, because her enthusiasm is infectious, and the crowd's chanting "drink, drink," like it's a sacred ritual. Here's an oddball fact: Viking mead could take months to ferment, and a bad batch might have been used to clean weapons or poison rivals. You're hoping Astrid's a pro, because this stuff's strong enough to knock out a horse. Your head's buzzing louder than that goat in the corner, which, by the way, is now chewing on a stray belt. Astrid's still talking, explaining how she guards her honey stash from bears and nosy neighbors. She hands you another mug. Yes, you're up to 4 vessels now, and you're starting to feel like a human liquor cabinet. You try to sidestep, mumbling about needing air, but she blocks you, insisting you try her special batch for the chieftain's next feast. The crowd's eating it up, toasting Astrid's skill and your apparent doom. Modern life's obsessions, like chasing the perfect coffee blend, seem downright tame compared to Astrid's mead mania. You're tempted to ask for water, but you're pretty sure that'd get you laughed out of the Longhouse, or worse. Historians can't agree on whether Viking brewers added secret ingredients for ritual or just flavor, but Astrid's mead feels like it's got a pinch of magic. Your stomach's gurgling, your hands are cramping, and you're dodging spills like a pro. Another Viking stumbles over, slopping mead onto your boots, and Astrid laughs, pouring more into your mug to make up for it. The fire crackles, the drumbeat pulses, and the Longhouse feels like it's closing in. You're caught in Astrid's orbit, a time traveler drowning in her pride and her brew. One thing's clear: if mead's the lifeblood of this hall, Astrid's its beating heart, and you're her latest test subject. You're barely upright, a sticky, mead-soaked time traveler lost in the Longhouse's relentless chaos, your arms aching from juggling a mug and 3 drinking horns that seem to defy physics by never running dry. The fire pit's flames cast a warm, flickering haze, and the air's heavy with smoke, sweat, and the sweet sting of Astrid's latest brew still lingering on your tongue. You're weaving through the crowd, dodging Vikings who seem to think you're the evening's main attraction, when a sudden tug on your sleeve nearly sends your mead arsenal crashing. A woman with wild red hair and a grin like a fox yanks you into a clearing where Vikings are stomping and spinning to a drum's frantic beat. "Dance, stranger!" she shouts, thrusting yet another horn at you because apparently you look like you need more. You're starting to think this Longhouse is a mead-based black hole. You stammer, trying to explain you're not much for dancing. Modern you prefers a cozy couch and a playlist, but the crowd's already circling, clapping in rhythm. The drum thumps like a heartbeat, joined by a bone flute's eerie wail, and you're swept into the fray. You clutch your horns and mug, mead sloshing as you stumble through the steps. The red-haired woman grabs your hand, spinning you so fast your head spins faster than the mead's already making it. "Like this," she laughs, her boots kicking up straw. You're flailing, but the Vikings cheer like you're a natural. Historians note that Viking dances were often part of feasts, blending ritual and revelry to honor gods or just blow off steam. This feels more like a test of your coordination and sobriety. Someone refills your mug mid-spin, because of course they do, and mead splashes onto your chest. You're a walking brewery now, and the crowd loves it, toasting your every misstep. A burly guy with a missing ear joins the dance, linking arms with you and bellowing a song about a storm-tossed ship. You try to keep up, but your feet tangle, and you nearly crash into a bench. Here's a quirky tidbit. Viking dances sometimes mimicked battles, with stomps and spins meant to evoke axe swings. You're hoping this one's just for fun, because you're about as battle-ready as that goat in the corner, yep, still munching, now on a stray mitten. The music speeds up, and you're passed to another partner, a woman with braids so long they whip your face as she twirls. She hands you more mead, because apparently dancing requires hydration, and you sip to avoid offending her. Your stomach's staging a full-on mutiny, and your head's buzzing like a beehive in a windstorm. The Longhouse is a blur, firelight, fur cloaks, and sweaty faces all melting together. You're tempted to fake a sprained ankle, but the crowd's energy is infectious, and you're half laughing, half panicking as you spin. Modern life's dance floors, with their awkward swaying and spilled cocktails, have nothing on this Viking whirlwind. Historians still debate whether Viking dances were more about community or showing off, but right now, it feels like both. You're the outsider, yet they're pulling you in, mead and all, like you're one of their own. Another Viking cuts in, a kid barely tall enough to reach your shoulder, who spins you with surprising strength and refills your horn for luck. You're drowning in mead and motion, your boots slipping on the straw. The drum pounds, the flute wails, and someone's shouting for another round. You're caught in the dance, a time traveler swept into the Longhouse's wild rhythm, wondering how you'll survive this mead-fueled marathon. One thing's certain, these Vikings know how to party, and you're their reluctant star. You're still dizzy from the Viking dance, your boots slick with straw and mead, your arms screaming from juggling a mug and 3 drinking horns that seem to refill by some Norse sorcery. The Longhouse is a pulsing inferno of noise and heat, the fire pit's flames licking the smoky air, casting wild shadows on walls etched with snarling beasts. You're panting, trying to catch your breath after that whirlwind of stomping and spinning, when you stumble into a corner where a knot of Vikings is haggling louder than a modern-day flea market. A wiry man with a patchy beard spots you and grins, thrusting, surprise, surprise, another mead horn into your already overcrowded hands. "Drink to seal the deal," he barks, like you're part of whatever scheme he's cooking. You're starting to think you've got a sign on your back that says Mead Magnate. You blink, trying to make sense of the chaos. The wiry guy's trading a bundle of furs for a pair of iron knives, while another Viking's betting a silver arm ring on a dice game nearby. Mead's flowing like currency here, horns pass to sweeten deals or settle bets. You sip from the new horn, because what else can you do? And the sweet, fiery liquid burns your throat. Historians note that Vikings often used feasts to conduct business, with mead lubricating trades and alliances. This corner's a marketplace, a casino, and a bar all rolled into one, and you're somehow the guest of honor. The wiry guy clinks his horn against yours, slopping mead onto your sleeve, and declares you his lucky charm. Great. Another Viking, a woman with a face like she's seen too many winters, offers you mead to bless her deal for a sack of barley. You're up to 5 vessels now, and you're balancing them like a circus act gone wrong. You sip again, your head swimming, and the crowd cheers like you've just brokered peace with the gods. Here's an outlandish trivia question. Did Vikings ever use mead as actual payment? Answer: not quite, but gifting it was a power move, signaling wealth and generosity. You're living proof, drowning in their largesse while trying not to drop your arsenal. The goat in the corner, still chomping, now on a stray rope, looks like it's judging your life choices. You try to edge away, but the wiry guy pulls you into a bet, his wagering a bone comb that he can outdrink his friend. Drink with us, he insists, refilling your mug. You're not sure how you got roped into this, but you sip, and the crowd roars, placing side bets on you. Modern life's hustle, like haggling over a used car, feels downright civilized compared to this mead-soaked bazaar. You're tempted to toss your horns and sprint for the door, but it's blocked by a guy trading a shield for a chicken. The Longhouse's energy is relentless, and you're caught in its current, a sticky, woozy time traveler. Historians still wonder how much Viking trade relied on trust versus intimidation, but right now, it's all mead and bravado. Your stomach's gurgling like a fjord in a storm, and your hands are cramping. Another Viking, maybe the comb guy's cousin, sloshes more mead into your horn to celebrate a deal you didn't follow. The fire crackles, dice clatter, and someone's shouting about a stolen axe. You're juggling mead and expectations, wondering if you'll ever escape this liquid economy. One thing's clear, in this Longhouse, mead's more than a drink, it's the glue holding this chaotic marketplace together, and you're its unwitting mascot. You're a mead-drenched mess, staggering through the Longhouse with a mug and 4 drinking horns, your arms screaming and your head throbbing like a war drum. The fire pit's glow bathes the room in a hazy amber, the air thick with smoke, roasted meat, and that relentless honeyed tang that's practically fused to your skin. You've just escaped the trading corner, where mead was currency and you were the lucky charm, but there's no rest in this Viking storm. You stumble toward a quieter spot, wishful thinking, when a figure steps into the firelight, silencing the crowd with a single raised hand. He's lean, with eyes like a hawk and a cloak pinned with a raven-shaped brooch. A skald, the Viking poet, and he's about to weave a saga. Before you can blink, he spots you and thrusts a horn of mead your way. "Drink, stranger, for inspiration," he declares, his voice smooth as polished stone. You're starting to think you're the Longhouse's unofficial mead repository. You fumble, barely keeping your arsenal intact, and take the horn, number 5, because why not? The mead's sharp, with a minty edge that cuts through the fog in your head. You sip, and the crowd murmurs approval, settling onto benches and furs to listen. The skald begins, his voice rising and falling like waves on a fjord, singing of a hero who battled a frost giant. His words paint vivid pictures, ice cracking under boots, a sword flashing like lightning. He pauses, eyes locking onto you, and offers another pour of mead for the hero's strength. You drink again, because refusing feels like cursing the tale itself. Historians note that skalds were the keepers of Viking history, their poems preserving deeds for generations. This guy's good, good enough to make you forget your aching arms for a moment. The crowd's entranced, but they are still Vikings, so someone refills your mug mid-verse, slopping mead onto your boots. You're a walking spill hazard now, and the Scald's grinning like he knows it. He weaves you into the story, calling you the wanderer with many horns, and the crowd roars with laughter. Here's a zany detail. Viking Scalds sometimes improvised insults in their poems, a kind of lyrical roast. You're just glad this guy's sticking to heroics, though you're bracing for a jab about your mead-soaked tunic. The Longhouse is quieter now, the fires crackle and the Scald's voice the only sounds, though that goat in the corner, yep, still chewing, now on a stray spoon, adds its own rhythm. You try to lean against a beam, but a kid darts by, topping off one of your horns for Odin's wisdom. Your stomach's staging a full-on revolt, and your head feels like it's hosting a tiny long-ship race. The Scald's song shifts to a sea voyage, his hands mimicking waves, and he toasts you again, claiming mead fuels his muse. You sip, half expecting to see that frost giant walk in. Modern life storytellers, like podcasters droning on, have nothing on this guy's charisma. You're tempted to applaud, but your hands are full, and you're not sure you could lift them anyway. Historians still debate whether Scalds exaggerated for fame or truth, but right now, you're living the myth, caught in a web of poetry and mead. The Scald finishes with a flourish, and the crowd erupts, horns clinking. He bows, then pours more mead into your mug, declaring you his muse. You're drowning in verse and liquor, the Longhouse pulsing around you. The fire sputters, someone starts a new song, and you're wondering how you'll survive this poetic onslaught. One thing's clear, the Scald's words are as potent as the mead, and you're their reluctant vessel. You're a staggering, mead-soaked relic in the Longhouse's relentless chaos, your arms numb from juggling a mug and 5 drinking horns, each one sloshing with liquid that's starting to feel like a personal vendetta. The fire pit's flames cast a warm, flickering glow, and the air's a dense haze of smoke, roasted meat, and that honeyed mead scent that's practically tattooed on your soul. You're still buzzing from the Scald's poetic assault, his words about frost giants and sea voyages echoing in your foggy head, when the crowd shifts like a tide. A feast is unfolding, tables groaning under platters of boar, bread, and fish, and you're swept toward one before you can protest. A burly Viking with a beard like a bramble bush shoves you onto a bench, thrusting, yep, you guessed it, another horn of mead into your hands. Eat, drink, he roars, like you're starving for both. You're starting to think you're the Longhouse's mead mascot, and there's no retirement plan. You fumble, barely keeping your arsenal from crashing, and stare at the spread, chunks of meat swimming in grease, loaves as dense as stones, and some questionable pickled thing that smells like regret. The mead in your newest horn is cloudy, with a berry tang that hits like a slap. You sip, because the crowd's watching, and they cheer like you've conquered a kingdom. Historians note that Viking feasts were social glue, binding communities through shared food and drink, mead especially, which flowed to honor gods or flaunt wealth. This feast is a full-on spectacle, with Vikings tearing into food like it's their last meal, all while passing you more mead to join the bond. Your stomach's already staging a mutiny, but you nibble a bit of bread, hoping it'll soak up the liquid chaos. Someone refills your mug mid-bite, slopping mead onto the table, and a woman across from you laughs, toasting your endurance. You're not sure if she's mocking you, but you clink horns anyway, spilling more. Here's an oddball fact. Vikings sometimes drank from their enemies' skulls. Okay, probably just a rumor, but you're eyeing your horn suspiciously now. The Longhouse is a frenzy. People shouting over each other, a guy juggling apples, badly, and that goat, still chomping, now on a discarded fish head, adding to the madness. You're tempted to hide under the table, but a kid plops beside you, offering more mead for Freya's blessing. You're up to 6 vessels, and your arms feel like they're auditioning for Valhalla. The feast ramps up, with Vikings trading insults and stories between bites. A woman bets she can out-eat her neighbor, and they both turn to you, demanding you toast their challenge. You raise a horn, honestly, you've lost track of which, and sip, the crowd roaring like it's a gladiator match. Modern life's dinner parties, with their polite small talk and kale salads, feel like a distant dream compared to this mead-fueled food fight. Your head spinning, either from the mead or the sheer volume of shouting. You try to set a horn down, but a Viking snatches it, refills it, and hands it back for Thor's hammer. You're starting to think Thor's got a personal grudge against you. Historians can't agree on whether Viking feasts were more about unity or one-upmanship, but right now, it's a blurry mix of both. Your hands are cramping, your tunic's a mead-soaked disaster, and someone's just slung a chunk of boar at their friend, missing and hitting your shoulder. The fire crackles, the drum starts up again, and you're caught in the feast's wild current, a time traveler drowning in food and drink. One thing's clear, these Vikings don't do moderation, and you're their reluctant guest of honor, buried under a mountain of mead and meat. You're a mead-sodden wreck, slumped at the feasting table, your arms trembling under the weight of a mug and 5 drinking horns, each brimming with liquid that's starting to feel like a Viking curse. The Longhouse is a roaring beast, its fire pit spitting embers into the smoky air, the scent of roasted boar and honeyed mead so thick you're practically breathing it. You're still reeling from the feast's chaos, greasy platters, flying food, and Vikings shouting like they're auditioning for Ragnarok, when a snicker ripples through the crowd. A lanky Viking with a grin like a wolf leans in, offering you yet another horn. Special batch, he winks, and before you can dodge, it's in your hands. You sip, and oh no, it's weirdly bitter, with a grassy kick that makes your tongue curl. The crowd bursts into laughter, and you realize you've been pranked. These jokers spiked your mead with some herb, and now you're the punchline. You cough, trying to play it cool, but your eyes are watering, and the lanky guy's doubled over, slapping his knee. Bog myrtle and a pinch of mischief. He cackles, revealing the culprit. The crowd's eating it up, toasting your misfortune with their own horns. Historians note that Vikings loved practical jokes, often using feasts to test wits or humiliate rivals. Mead was a favorite vehicle for their antics. You're clearly the outsider here, and this special batch is their way of initiation. You force a smile, raising the prank horn, and take another sip, because what else can you do? The bitter tang's growing on you, or maybe that's just your survival instinct kicking in. The crowd cheers, and someone refills your mug, because apparently even pranks come with a chaser. Another Viking, a woman with a braid like a ship's rope, joins the fun, slipping you a horn she claims is just honey. You're skeptical, fool me once, right? But you sip, and it's suspiciously minty. The crowd roars again, and she admits it's laced with wild thyme for courage. You're up to 7 vessels now, and your arms feel like they're staging a walkout. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vikings sometimes added herbs to mead not just for flavor but for supposed medicinal perks, like calming nerves or boosting strength. You're not feeling stronger, but you're definitely jittery, and that goat in the corner, still chewing, now on a stray cloth, seems to be smirking at you. You try to slip away, but the pranksters are relentless. A kid darts by, swapping one of your horns for a new one that smells like pine needles. "Full luck," he chirps, scampering off before you can protest. The crowd's chanting "drink, drink," like it's a sacred rite, and you're caught in their game, sipping from the piney horn while dodging more refills. Modern life's pranks, like a co-worker's jump scare in the break room, feel like child's play compared to this herbal ambush. Your stomach's gurgling like a fjord in a storm, and your head's a foggy mess of mint, thyme, and mischief. Historians still wonder how much Viking humor was friendly versus mean-spirited, but right now, it's a blurry mix of both. You're the butt of the joke, yet they are toasting you like a hero. Another Viking sloshes more mead into your mug, claiming it's plain this time, but you're not holding your breath. The fire crackles, someone's banging a shield like a drum, and the Longhouse feels like it's spinning. Or maybe that's just you. You're drowning in spiked mead and laughter, a time traveler caught in a Viking prank war. One thing's clear, these jokers play dirty, and you're their sticky, herb-soaked target. You're a walking disaster, teetering in the Longhouse's smoky haze, your arms screaming from juggling a mug and 6 drinking horns, each one brimming with brews that range from honeysweet to prankster-spiked herbal nightmares. The fire pit's flames cast wild shadows on the rune-carved walls, and the air's thick with roasted meat, sweat, and that inescapable mead tang that's practically your second skin now. You're still coughing from the last special batch. Those pranksters slipped you, your tongue stinging with time and mischief, when a shadow looms over you. A warrior, built like a bear with a scar slashing across his brow, plants himself in your path. His grin is all teeth, and is holding a horn so big it could double as a bucket. You, stranger, he bellows, voice shaking the rafters. Drink with me, or fight me. The crowd hushes, then erupts, chanting drink. Drink! You're starting to think this Longhouse is a mead-fueled gladiator arena, and you're the main event. You freeze, your sticky hands barely keeping your arsenal from crashing. Fighting's not an option. Those arms could probably snap you like kindling, so you nod, hoping to avoid becoming a Viking punching bag. He thrusts the massive horn at you, and you somehow wedge it into your grip, bringing your total to 7 vessels. The mead inside is dark, almost black, with a sharp, malty bite that makes your eyes water. You sip, and he matches you, draining half his horn in one gulp. The crowd roars, and you realize this isn't just a drink, it's a contest. Historians note that Viking drinking games were tests of endurance, often tied to honor or just bragging rights. This guy's clearly out to prove something, and you're his unwilling opponent. He leans in, breath reeking of mead and bravado. I'm Sven, he growls. No one outdrinks me. You mumble something about pacing yourself, but he's already calling for another round, and a kid scurries over with a pitcher, topping off your horns. You sip again, the malty fire scorching your throat, and Sven laughs, slopping mead onto the straw-strewn floor. Here's a zany detail. Viking drinking contests sometimes ended with the loser passing out, or worse, starting a brawl. You're praying for the former, because Sven's fists look like they could dent a shield. That goat in the corner, still chomping, now on a stray bone, seems to be betting against you. The crowd circling like wolves, chanting Sven's name and yours, well, stranger, and someone refills your mug for strength. Your stomach's a churning fjord, and your head spinning faster than a long ship in a storm. You try to sip slowly, but Sven's watching, daring you to match him. You raise the big horn, mead sloshing onto your tunic, and drink deeper than you mean to. The crowd goes wild, and Sven claps your shoulder, nearly knocking you off the bench. Modern life's challenges, like surviving a karaoke night, feel like a breeze compared to this liquid showdown. You're tempted to fake a faint, but Sven's already toasting to Valhalla, and you're caught in his game. Historians still debate whether Viking contests were more about camaraderie or rivalry, but right now, it's pure machismo. Sven's draining his horn again, eyes glinting, and you force another sip, your vision blurring. Another Viking, maybe Sven's buddy, sloshes more mead into your mug, claiming it's for fairness. The fire crackles, a drum pounds, and someone's shouting bets on who'll collapse first. You're drowning in mead and pressure, a time traveler trapped in a warrior's challenge. One thing's clear, Sven's not backing down, and you're barely hanging on, your sticky hands trembling under the weight of his horn and his ego. You're barely standing in the Longhouse's suffocating heat, your arms screaming from juggling a mug and 7 drinking horns, each one sloshing with brews that range from malty fire to herbal pranks. The fire pit's flames dance wildly, casting jagged shadows on the timber walls, and the air's a choking blend of smoke, sweat, and that honeyed mead scent that's practically your new perfume. You're still reeling from Sven's drinking contest, your head pounding like Thor's hammer and your stomach churning like a stormy fjord. The Longhouse is hitting its peak, the night growing wilder as Vikings shout, sing, and stumble over benches. Just when you think you've hit your limit, a woman with a laugh like a crow's caw shoves another horn at you. "Drink, wanderer," she slurs, spilling half the mead on your boots. You're starting to think you're trapped in a Norse Groundhog Day, doomed to drown in mead forever. You fumble, somehow keeping your teetering arsenal intact, and sip from the new horn, number 8, because apparently you're collecting them now. It's sweet but sharp, like fermented apples, and it hits you like a wave. The crowd's a blur of flushed faces and waving arms, their voices blending into a roar that shakes the rafters. Historians note that Viking feasts often stretched into the wee hours, fueled by mead and the need to outshine each other. This one's a marathon, and you're the unwilling anchor leg, staggering through a haze of toasts and chaos. Someone starts a chant about a sea serpent, and the drum picks up, its beat matching your racing pulse. You're not sure if it's the mead or the noise, but the Longhouse feels like it's tilting. Another Viking, a guy with a beard like a tangled forest, stumbles into you, slopping more mead into your mug. "For the gods," he mumbles, then trips over a shield, landing in a heap. The crowd laughs, and you're tempted to join him on the floor, it looks cozy down there. Here's an oddball fact. Vikings sometimes believed mead could connect them to the divine, a liquid bridge to Odin or Freya. You're feeling less divine and more like a soggy sponge, but you raise a horn anyway, spilling half of it. That goat in the corner, still chewing, now on a stray glove, seems to be the only one keeping it together. You're jealous of its simple life. You try to weave through the crowd, hoping for a wall to lean against, but every step draws more Vikings. A kid, barely tall enough to see over the table, refills one of your horns for luck, and you're starting to think luck is code for torture. The Longhouse is a furnace now, sweat beading on your brow as the fire roars and the singing grows louder. Modern life's late nights, like binge-watching a show until 2 a.m., feel like a nap compared to this relentless revelry. You're tempted to dump your horns and make a break for it, but the door's blocked by a knot of Vikings arm wrestling over a spilled pitcher. Historians can't agree on whether Viking feasts were more about bonding or chaos, but right now, it's pure pandemonium. Your hands are cramping, your tunic's a mead-soaked ruin, and someone's just flung a bread crust that lands in your mug. The drum pounds, a woman's shouting about a lost bet, and you're caught in the Longhouse's feverish pulse, a time traveler drowning in a sea of mead and madness. One thing's clear, the night's only getting wilder, and you're barely holding on, your sticky fingers trembling under the weight of 8 horns and a crowd that won't quit. You're teetering on the edge of collapse in the Longhouse's suffocating chaos, your arms screaming from juggling a mug and 8 drinking horns, each one sloshing with brews that feel like a personal challenge from the Norse gods. The fire pit's flames roar, casting a flickering glow that makes the rune-carved walls seem to writhe, and the air's a thick soup of smoke, sweat, and that honeyed mead scent that's practically fused to your bones. You're still reeling from the night's escalation, Sven's drinking contest, prankster herbs, and a feast that turned into a battlefield, and you're desperate for a break. You scan the Longhouse for an escape, a quiet corner, maybe a mythical exit sign. But the crowd's a living wall, Vikings shouting and swaying like a storm-tossed sea. Just as you take a step, a burly woman with a grin like a battle axe blocks your path, thrusting yet another horn at you. "Drink, wanderer," she slurs, slopping mead onto your already soaked tunic. You're starting to think you're the Longhouse's designated mead sponge, and there's no towel in sight. You fumble, somehow keeping your teetering arsenal from crashing, and accept the horn, number 9, because apparently you're going for a world record. The mead's tart, with a berry bite that stings your raw throat, and you sip just to keep the peace. The crowd cheers, because at this point, your every move is a spectacle. Historians note that Viking hospitality could be overwhelming, a deliberate show of wealth and power meant to impress or intimidate guests. You're definitely impressed, but mostly by your own ability to stay upright. You try to sidestep the woman, mumbling about needing air, but she grabs your arm, pulling you back into the fray. "To Freya!" she roars, raising her horn, and the crowd echoes, refilling your mug before you can blink. Your stomach's a churning mess, and your head spinning like Thor's hammer battling ice giants. You dodge a flailing dancer and nearly trip over a spilled pitcher, your boots sticking to the straw-strewn floor. Another Viking, a guy with a face like a weathered cliff, shoves more mead at you for Thor's strength. You're up to 10 vessels if you count the mug, and your arms feel like they're auditioning for early retirement. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vikings sometimes believed refusing a drink insulted the host's honor, which explains why you're drowning in mead but not complaints. That goat in the corner, still chewing, now on a stray rope, looks like it's laughing at your plight. You're tempted to trade places with it, but you're pretty sure it'd demand mead too. You try again to escape, weaving through a knot of Vikings arguing over a dice game, but every path leads to more horns. A kid darts by, topping off one of yours for Odin's wisdom, and you're starting to think Odin's wisdom would be to run. The Longhouse is a furnace, the fire's heat mixing with the crowd's energy to make your skin prickle. Modern life's overwhelm, like a packed subway at rush hour, feels like a gentle breeze compared to this meat-soaked gauntlet. You're tempted to dump your horns and crawl under a bench, but the crowd's watching, their chants growing louder as the night spirals out of control. Your hands are cramping, your tunic's a sticky ruin, and someone's just slung a chicken bone that lands in your mug. The drum pounds, a skald starts another song, and you're caught in the Longhouse's wild current, a time traveler desperate to dodge the mead tide but sinking deeper with every step. One thing's clear, escape is a fantasy, and you're the Viking's sticky, staggering trophy. You're a mead-soaked ruin, barely clinging to consciousness in the Longhouse's unrelenting storm, your arms trembling under the weight of a mug and 9 drinking horns, each brimming with brews that feel like a divine prank from Loki himself. The fire pit's flames sputter, casting a dim, wavering glow on the rune-etched walls, and the air's a heavy fog of smoke, sweat, and that honeyed mead scent that's now your permanent shadow. You've survived dances, pranks, and Sven's drinking contest, but the night's worn you down. You stumble toward the fire pit, hoping to collapse on a bench, when a final Viking, a wiry old man with eyes like a raven's, thrusts yet another horn at you. "Last drink, wanderer," he cackles, spilling mead on your boots. You're past protesting, you accept it, number 10, and slump by the fire, horns piling around you like a sticky fortress. You're the Longhouse's mead-soaked monument, and the night's blurring into a hazy dream. You sip the new horn, because why break the streak? And it's soft, almost floral, a gentle end to the chaos. The crowd still roaring, but it's distant now, their shouts and songs fading into a low hum. Historians note that Viking feasts could last days, with mead fueling endurance and excess. You've lived a lifetime in hours, and your body's begging for mercy. The fire's warmth wraps you like a blanket, and you lean back, horns clinking as they settle. That goat in the corner, still chewing, now on a stray twig, seems to nod in approval, the only creature unfazed by the madness. You're jealous of its calm, but you're too tired to care. The Longhouse is a fading tapestry, shadows dancing, a skald's voice drifting, a drum's faint pulse. Someone refills your mug, but you barely notice, your hands too numb to juggle more. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vikings sometimes slept where they drank, sprawled among horns and leftovers. You're half tempted to follow suit, curling up by the fire with your mead mountain. Your head's a foggy whirl, the mead's warmth spreading through you like a tide. Modern life's exhaustion, like pulling an all-nighter, feels trivial compared to this marathon of revelry. You're tempted to close your eyes and let the Longhouse carry you away, but the crowd's still watching, their cheers a distant echo. Historians still wonder how Vikings recovered from feasts like this, but right now, you're just grateful to be sitting. The fire crackles softly, and you're sinking, the mead's weight pulling you toward sleep. The old man pats your shoulder, muttering about good company, and you manage a weak smile, your sticky hands finally still. The fire's glow softens, its embers whispering as the Longhouse hums around you. You're cradled in the warmth, the chaos of the night slipping away like a ship on a calm sea. The mead's heavy in your veins, but it's gentle now, a lullaby woven with honey and herbs. You imagine the Vikings' voices fading, their laughter blending with the wind outside, carrying you to a quiet place where horns don't multiply and boots don't stick. The runes on the walls blur, their stories of gods and heroes wrapping you in a timeless embrace. You're safe here, a wanderer who braved the mead tide and lived to rest. Let the fire's hum guide you, let the night's weight ease. Sleep beckons, soft and sure, promising dreams of fjords and starlit skies. Drift now, time traveler, into the peace you've earned. And so, dear travelers, we leave the raucous Longhouse behind, its mead-soaked revelry fading into the soft glow of memory. The fire's embers dim, and the Viking chants dissolve into the night's gentle hush. Now, let us turn the page to a tale woven from the threads of Norse myth, where gods and giants clash, and the trickster Loki spins his cunning web. Settle in, let the world slip away, and allow this ancient story to carry you into the misty realms of Asgard and beyond. Now let us journey to the glittering halls of Asgard and the shadowed lands of giants to hear a myth of cunning and courage, the tale of Loki and the theft of Thor's hammer. Picture a world of towering mountains, icy winds, and skies ablaze with stars, where divine power hangs in delicate balance. This is no gentle bedtime story, but fear not, its twists will cradle you into a peaceful slumber. So, before you settle deeper, take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell to join our time-traveling adventures. In return, I promise stories crafted to spark wonder and ease you into restful dreams. Share your location and local time in the comments. Let's see where our listeners drift tonight. Now, dim the lights, let a soft hum fill the air, and let this Norse myth unfold. In the golden realm of Asgard, where the gods dwell in halls of splendor, Loki, the trickster, moves like a shadow among light. His eyes gleam with mischief, his mind a labyrinth of schemes. Neither fully god nor giant, Loki is a shapeshifter, a weaver of lies and clever plans, loyal to none but his own whims. On this day, he wanders Asgard's meadows, his silver-tongued idol, seeking amusement. The gods, wary of his pranks, keep their distance, for Loki's jests often sting. Yet his presence is tolerated, for his wit has saved them as often as it has vexed them. Historical fact side note: Loki's dual nature reflects the Norse view of chaos as both destructive and creative, a force embodied in myths where he aids and betrays the gods. Now back to our tale. But trouble stirs beyond Loki's making. In the quiet of dawn, a theft has shaken Asgard's heart. Thor, the thunder god, awakens to find his mighty hammer, Mjolnir, gone. This is no mere weapon. Mjolnir is the protector of gods. It strikes shaping mountains and crushing foes. Without it, Asgard's strength falters, and the giants of Jotunheim grow bold. Loki, passing by Thor's hall, hears a rumble like distant storms and senses opportunity. He slips closer, his curiosity sharper than a blade, ready to twist this crisis to his own ends. The Longhouse of the gods hums with tension, and Loki, ever the spark, prepares to ignite a plan. The halls of Asgard tremble with unease, the morning light casting long shadows across the golden meadows where the gods gather. Loki, the trickster, lingers near Thor's hall, his sharp ears catching the storm brewing within. Inside, Thor discovers the unthinkable. Mjolnir, his hammer of thunder, has vanished. Its absence is a wound to Asgard's might, for Mjolnir is no mere tool, it is the breaker of giants, the shaper of storms, the shield of the gods' realm. Without it, the balance between Asgard and the chaotic lands of Jotunheim teeters. Thor's roar shakes the timbers, a sound like mountains splitting, as he storms from his hall, his red beard bristling with fury. Who dares steal Mjolnir? Thor bellows, his voice rolling across Asgard like a thunderclap. His eyes, blazing with wrath, scan the gathered gods, but they offer no answers, only murmurs of alarm. Loki, standing at the edge of the crowd, hides a smirk, his mind already spinning with possibilities. Thor's gaze lands on him, and the thunder god strides forward, his massive hand seizing Loki's shoulder. "You, trickster," Thor growls, "your mischief reeks in this. Speak, or I'll shake the truth from you." Loki raises his hands, his expression a mask of innocence, though his heart races with delight at the chaos. "I swear, Thor, my hands are clean," Loki says, his voice smooth as polished stone. "But fear not, I'll find your hammer, for none know the ways of thieves as I do." Thor releases him, grudgingly, his fists still clenched. Loki's promise is half truth, half opportunity, for he relishes the chance to meddle. Did you know Mjolnir, meaning crusher, was a sacred symbol in Norse culture? It was often worn as amulets by Vikings to invoke Thor's protection. I'll take that kind of protection any day. Let's get back to it. The gods watch as Loki prepares to depart, his mind already tracing paths to Jotunheim, where giants dwell and secrets fester. Thor's rage lingers, a storm held at bay, but he trusts Loki's cunning, for now. The trickster's eyes gleam, sensing a game where he might turn disaster into triumph, or at least amusement. In Asgard's golden light, the tension crackles like a gathering storm, the gods' murmurs rippling through the air as Thor stands, his fists clenched, his fury barely contained. Mjolnir, his sacred hammer, remains stolen, its absence a gaping wound in the realm's strength. Thor's roar still echoes in the halls, his demand for answers unanswered, his threat to Loki hanging heavy. The trickster, unfazed by Thor's wrath, brushes off his cloak with a theatrical flourish, his mind already racing toward Jotunheim, the land of giants, where he suspects the thief hides. Loki knows Thor's patience is thin, and failure will bring more than harsh words. Yet the challenge excites him, a puzzle to unravel with his silver tongue and cunning heart. Thor strides among the gods, his voice booming like thunder over the mountains. "Loki, you swore to find Mjolnir," he declares, his eyes blazing. "Delay, and I'll bind you to a rock myself." The gods nod, their faces grim, for without Mjolnir, Asgard's walls grow fragile against the giant's ambitions. Loki bows, his smile sly, and promises swift action, though his thoughts twist like a serpent. He seeks Freyja, the goddess of beauty, whose magic feather cloak allows flight across realms. In her hall, adorned with gleaming jewels, Freyja listens as Loki explains the crisis, his words honeyed but urgent. "Loan me your cloak, fair Freyja," Loki pleads, "and I'll seek the hammer in Jotunheim." Freyja, wary of Loki's tricks, hesitates, but the threat to Asgard sways her. She hands over the cloak, its feathers shimmering like starlight, and warns him to return it unsoiled. Loki dons the cloak, his form blurring as he transforms into a swift falcon, wings beating against the wind. Here's an interesting piece of trivia. Freyja's feather cloak reflects Norse beliefs in shape-shifting, a power often tied to gods and shamans in Viking lore. Pretty cool here? Back to the story. With a cry, Loki soars from Asgard, the world below a tapestry of frost and stone, his eyes fixed on the jagged peaks of Jotunheim, where Mjolnir's thief awaits. The winds of Jotunheim howl across jagged peaks and frozen valleys, a stark contrast to Asgard's golden warmth, as Loki soars above in the form of a falcon, Freyja's feather cloak shimmering around him. His sharp eyes scan the rugged land, seeking the thief who dared steal Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer. The loss weighs heavy on Asgard, where Thor's rage still simmers, and Loki knows his cunning must deliver answers, or face the thunder god's wrath. The cloak's magic carries him swiftly, his wings cutting through icy gusts, until he spies a towering hall of stone nestled among the cliffs. It belongs to Tion, a giant king known for his greed and boldness. Loki lands, shedding the falcon form, and strides into Tion's hall, his cloak trailing like a shadow. The giant sits on a throne of rough-hewn rock, his massive frame draped in furs, Mjolnir nowhere in sight. Tion's eyes narrow at the sight of Loki, but a smug grin spreads across his face. "Trickster," Tion rumbles, his voice like grinding boulders, "have the gods sent you to beg for their hammer?" Loki, unfazed, steps closer, his smile sharp as a blade. "Name your price, Tion," he replies, "for Asgard does not bargain lightly." Tion laughs, a sound that shakes the hall's timbers, and leans forward. "Mjolnir is mine, hidden where none will find it," he boasts. "I'll return it only if Freyja, the fairest goddess, becomes my bride." Loki's mind races, knowing Freyja's fiery spirit will never bend to such a demand, but he keeps his face calm, nodding as if considering the terms. Historical fact side note: giants in Norse myths, like Tion, often symbolize chaos and opposition to the god's order, their conflicts driving many tales. Let's continue. Loki promises to relay the demand to Asgard, his thoughts already twisting toward a plan. He departs, the feather cloak transforming him once more into a falcon, soaring back to the gods with Tion's audacious price echoing in his ears. The golden halls of Asgard gleam under a twilight sky, but an air of unease lingers as Loki returns, the feather cloak fluttering as he shifts from falcon to his true form. The gods await, their faces taut with worry, Thor's massive frame looming like a storm cloud. Mjolnir, the hammer that guards their realm, remains in the hands of Tion, the giant king, and Loki carries news that will test Asgard's resolve. He strides into Freyja's hall, where the goddess stands adorned in jewels, her beauty rivaling the stars. The other gods gather, their murmurs hushed, as Loki bows with a flourish, his eyes glinting with the weight of his tidings. Him holds Mjolnir, Loki announces, his voice steady but laced with mischief, and demands Freyja as his bride to return it. A gasp ripples through the hall, and Freyja's eyes blaze with fury, her golden necklace, Brisingamen, flashing as she steps forward. "That wretched giant dares claim me," she cries, her voice sharp as a blade. "I'll sooner see Jotunheim burn than wed him." Her wrath shakes the hall, and the gods exchange uneasy glances, knowing Mjolnir's loss weakens them all. Thor clenches his fists, his knuckles white, but even he hesitates to challenge Freyja's will. Loki, sensing the deadlock, lets his smile widen, though he treads carefully. "Then we must outwit the giant," he says, his mind already weaving a plan. Freyja's refusal is absolute, her pride a fire no giant can tame, and the gods nod, their hope pinned on Loki's cunning. Did you know, Freyja, a goddess of love and war, was fiercely independent in Norse myths, reflecting the valued autonomy of women in some Viking sagas. "Go on, girl. Where were we?" The hall falls silent, the weight of Tiom's demand pressing upon them. Loki's thoughts race, a spark of trickery igniting. He glances at Thor, a bold idea forming, one that will test the thunder god's patience and pride in ways none could foresee. In the radiant halls of Asgard, the gods stand in a tense circle, the weight of Freyja's refusal echoing through the air like a struck bell. Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer, remains captive in Jotunheim, held by the giant Tuam, who dares to demand Freyja as his bride. The goddess's fury still smolders, her eyes flashing as she vows never to bend to such an insult. Thor's rage simmers, his massive hands flexing as if yearning to crush Tuam's skull, but without Mjolnir, even the thunder god's strength feels hollow. Loki, the trickster, stands among them, his mind a whirlwind of schemes, his sly smile hinting at a plan yet unspoken. The gods turn to him, their hope a fragile thread, for Loki's cunning has turned tides before. Loki steps forward, his voice smooth as silk. "If Freyja will not go to Dim," he says, pausing for effect, "then we shall send a bride in her place." The gods frown, puzzled, but Loki's eyes gleam as he turns to Thor. "Thor shall be that bride, veiled and gowned, with me as your handmaid to ensure the ruse." A stunned silence falls, broken by Thor's roar of disbelief. "Dress as a woman? I, the slayer of giants," he thunders, his face reddening. The gods murmur, some stifling laughter, but Loki presses on, undaunted. "Mjolnir is worth the jest," he argues, "and Tiom's hall will be none the wiser." After heated debate, the gods agree, for Mjolnir's return outweighs pride. Thor grumbles, his scowl fierce, but Loki's plan takes root, a daring trick to outwit the giant. Preparations begin, the air buzzing with the promise of deception, as Asgard readies to send its thunder god into Jotunheim's jaws. The golden halls of Asgard hum with a strange mix of tension and suppressed mirth as the gods prepare for Loki's audacious plan. Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, lies hidden in Tiom's grasp, and Freyja's refusal to wed the giant has left deception as their only path. Loki, the trickster, stands at the center of the bustle, his eyes alight with glee as he oversees Thor's transformation. The thunder god, still bristling with indignation, stands stiffly as attendants drape him in a flowing gown of fine linen, its hem embroidered with silver threads. A veil, delicate as mist, is placed over his bearded face, barely concealing his scowl. Golden bangles clink on his wrists, and Freyja's gleaming necklace, Brisingamen, is fastened around his neck to complete the disguise as the goddess of beauty. Thor's grumbling shakes the floor like distant thunder. "This is madness, Loki," He mutters, tugging at the gown as if it were chains. "If any giant mocks me, I'll crush them all." Loki, dressed as a handmaid in a simpler gown, stifles a laugh, his voice soothing yet teasing. "Patience, Thor," he replies, adjusting the veil. "Your hammer awaits, and Tiam's too lovesick to see through our ruse." The gods, watching from the sidelines, exchange wary glances, knowing the plan hinges on Loki's quick wit and Thor's restraint, a tall order for the tempestuous thunder god. The preparations complete, Thor stands, an imposing bride towering over Loki's slighter frame. The gods offer blessings, their voices tinged with hope and doubt, as the pair readies to depart for Jotunheim. Thor's fists clench beneath the gown, his pride warring with necessity, while Loki's mind races, already anticipating the giant's haul and the chaos to come. The icy winds of Jotunheim howl around jagged peaks as Thor and Loki, cloaked in their disguises, descend from Asgard's golden heights to the giant's rugged realm. Thor, draped in a bride's gown and veil, strides with barely concealed fury, the delicate fabric straining against his massive frame. Freyja's necklace, Brisingamen, glints at his throat, a mockery of his usual armor. Loki, dressed as a handmaid, moves lightly beside him, his eyes darting with anticipation, his mind already spinning lies to weave in Tiam's hall. Mjolnir, the stolen hammer, lies somewhere within the giant's stronghold, and the success of their ruse hangs on Thor's ability to play the part of Freyja and Loki's knack for deception. The air grows colder, the path steeper, as they approach Tiam's stone hall, its looming silhouette carved against the frost-bitten cliffs. Thor's heavy steps crunch on the frozen ground, his grumbling muffled by the veil. "This gown itches worse than a troll's hide," he mutters, his voice a low growl. Loki, ever quick, shushes him with a grin. "Hush, fair bride," he teases, "lest your sweet voice betray us." Thor's glare could shatter stone, but he falls silent, his fists twitching beneath the flowing sleeves. The hall's great doors loom ahead, flanked by giant guards whose eyes narrow at the strange pair. Loki steps forward, his voice honeyed and bold, announcing the arrival of Freyja to wed their king. The guards, swayed by the sight of the veiled figure and the promise of a divine bride, swing the doors wide. "Here's another piece of trivia gold for you." Norse myths often depict Jotunheim as a chaotic counterpart to Asgard, reflecting Viking fears of the untamed wilderness beyond their settlements. Safety first. Back to it. Inside, the hall buzzes with anticipation, giants crowding the smoky space, their laughter like rolling boulders. Thor and Loki step into the heart of Tiam's domain, the weight of their deception pressing heavier with each step toward the giant king's throne. The stone hall of Tiam, king of the giants, thrums with raucous energy, its cavernous interior lit by flickering torches that cast long shadows across rough-hewn walls. Thor, disguised as Freyja in a flowing gown and veil, towers beside Loki, who plays the part of a demure handmaid. The stolen hammer, Mjolnir, remains hidden, its fate tied to the success of their daring ruse. Im, a hulking figure draped in furs, rises from his throne, his eyes gleaming with greed and delight as he beholds his supposed bride. The giants, gathered in a boisterous crowd, raise crude wooden cups, their cheers echoing like a landslide. Thor's massive frame shifts uncomfortably beneath the delicate linen, his veiled scowl hidden but his impatience palpable. Loki, ever watchful, keeps his smile steady, ready to spin lies at the first sign of trouble. Tiam claps his hands, and servants haul forth tables laden with roasted oxen, barrels of ale, and heaps of coarse bread. "A feast for my bride," he bellows, gesturing for Thor to sit at his side. The giants roar approval, their voices shaking the hall, as Thor and Loki take their places. The air grows thick with the scent of charred meat and sour ale, and Thor's stomach rumbles, his hunger barely checked by the absurdity of his role. Loki leans close, whispering, "Eat lightly, fair Freyja, lest you betray your grace." Thor grunts, his hands twitching beneath the table, yearning for Mjolnir's familiar weight. By the way, feasts in Norse myths, like those in Viking sagas, were central to social bonds, often serving as settings for alliances or, as here, deception. Let's continue. The feast begins, giants tearing into food with abandon, their laughter growing louder as ale flows. Hym, besotted, gazes at his veiled bride, unaware of the thunder god beneath, while Loki's sharp eyes scan the hall, seeking signs of Mjolnir and preparing for the moment their plan unfolds. The great hall of Tyrm's stronghold in Jotunheim pulses with the clamor of the giants' feast, the air heavy with the scent of roasted meat and spilled ale. Thor, veiled and gowned as Freyja, sits stiffly beside Tyrm, the giant king, whose greedy eyes fix on his supposed bride. Loki, playing the handmaid, hovers nearby, his sharp gaze darting between the revelers, ready to deflect suspicion. Mjolnir, Thor's stolen hammer, remains out of sight, its return the fragile hope of their deception. The tables groan under platters of oxen, fish, and bread, and the giants devour their meal with ravenous glee, their laughter like crashing stones. Thor, beneath his delicate disguise, cannot resist the spread, his hunger overpowering the need for restraint. Thor seizes a whole ox, tearing into it with such ferocity that bones snap, then downs 8 salmon and a heap of bread, washing it all with barrels of ale. The giants pause, their cups lowered, as Tyrm's brow furrows, his voice tinged with doubt. "What bride eats like a wolf?" he rumbles, leaning closer to the veiled figure. Thor's hands freeze, a fishbone dangling from his grip, his veiled eyes flashing with alarm. Loki, quick as a spark, steps forward, his voice smooth and soothing. "Fair Freyja has fasted 8 days in her longing for you, great Tyrm," he lies, bowing low. "Her appetite is but love's fervor." The giants murmur, some nodding, and Tyrm's suspicion softens, his grin returning as he claps Thor's shoulder, nearly toppling him. Here's something interesting. Norse myths often portray Thor's immense strength and appetite, reflecting Viking ideals of physical prowess and heroic excess. Marvel took that to the next level, didn't they? On with the story. The feast resumes, the giants' cheers drowning out the crackle of torches. Thor, chastened but still ravenous, picks at his plate, while Loki's mind races, knowing the ruse hangs by a thread. Hym, besotted, calls for the wedding rites to begin, and the moment of Mjolnir's return draws near. The stone hall of Tyrm's Jotunheim stronghold reverberates with the giants' raucous feast, torches casting a flickering glow over tables strewn with bones and overturned cups. Thor, disguised as Freyja, sits beside Tyrm, his massive frame barely contained by the delicate gown and veil, his hunger barely sated despite devouring enough for a small army. Loki, the cunning handmaid, hovers close, his quick lies having just quelled Tyrm's suspicions about the bride's ravenous appetite. Mjolnir, Thor's stolen hammer, remains hidden, its return the goal of this precarious deception. The giants, flushed with ale, shout and laugh, their voices a rolling thunder, but a tense undercurrent lingers as Tyrm's gaze lingers on his veiled prize, his desire clouded by fleeting doubts. Tyrm leans closer, his breath sour with ale, and peers beneath Thor's veil, catching a glimpse of fiery eyes. "Why does Freyja's gaze burn like a warrior's?" he mutters, his hand tightening on his cup. The hall quiets, giants sensing their king's unease, and Thor's fingers twitch, itching for a weapon. Loki, ever swift, glides forward, his voice a soothing melody. My lady's eyes blaze with passion for you, great Tim, he says, bowing deeply. 8 nights she lay sleepless, dreaming of this union. The life flows like honey, and Tim's frown softens, his laughter booming as he slaps the table, reassured. The giants join in, their cheers shaking the rafters, and the moment passes, the ruse intact. Here's another historical fact side note. Loki's role as a silver-tongued trickster in Norse myths mirrors the Viking value of eloquence, where clever words could diffuse conflicts or win favor. Gotta love Loki. The feast surges on, ale spilling and songs rising, but Loki's sharp eyes never stray far from Tim, knowing the giant's suspicions could flare again. Thor, beneath his veil, grips the table's edge, his patience thinning as the wedding rites loom, promising the return of Mjolnir, if their deception holds. The smoky hall of Tim's Jotunheim's stronghold pulses with the giants' revelry, the feast reaching a fevered pitch as ale-soaked laughter echoes off stone walls. Thor, veiled and gowned as Freyja, sits rigidly beside Tim, the giant king, his massive hands hidden beneath delicate sleeves, itching for the weight of Mjolnir. Loki, the sly handmaid, remains vigilant, his quick lies having twice saved their ruse from Tim's growing doubts, first over Thor's ravenous hunger, then his fiery gaze. The stolen hammer, Mjolnir, is still out of reach, but the moment of the wedding rite draws near, and with it, the chance to reclaim Asgard's strength. The giants, oblivious to the deception, pound their cups, their voices a chaotic din, as Tim, flushed with pride, calls for the ceremony to seal his union with the supposed goddess. Tim rises, his fur-clad bulk towering, and signals for silence. "Bring the hammer," he commands, his voice booming. "Let Mjolnir bless this bride and bind our vows." A murmur ripples through the hall, and Thor's breath catches beneath the veil, his heart pounding like a war drum. Servants emerge, bearing the mighty hammer, its head etched with runes, its handle worn from Thor's grip. Him, grinning, takes Mjolnir and places it in the lap of his bride as a sacred gesture, unaware of the thunder god beneath the gown. The weight of the hammer settles on Thor's thighs, familiar and heavy, and his fingers twitch, the urge to act nearly overwhelming. Loki, sensing the critical moment, leans close, whispering, "Patience, my lady, the time is near." Thor's veiled eyes burn, but he holds still, the hammer's presence a spark waiting to ignite. The giants chant, the torches flare, and Tim beams, blind to the storm about to break in his hall. The great hall of Tim's Jotunheim's stronghold trembles with the giants' fervent cheers, the air thick with the scent of ale and smoldering torches. Thor, disguised as Freyja, sits beneath a delicate veil, his heart racing as Mjolnir, his stolen hammer, rests heavily in his lap, placed there by Tim to bless the mock wedding. The giant king, oblivious to the deception, beams with pride, his fur-clad frame towering as he raises a cup to his bride. Loki, the cunning handmaid, stands poised, his eyes darting between Thor and the raucous crowd, ready to deflect any final suspicion. The giants, lost in their revelry, chant for the union, unaware that the thunder god's patience is a fraying thread, his fingers brushing Mjolnir's handle with barely restrained fury. Im leans forward, his voice slurred with ale, and calls for the veil to be lifted, eager to gaze upon Freyja's face. Before Loki can intervene, Thor seizes the moment. With a roar that shakes the hall, he casts off the gown and veil, revealing his red-bearded, wrathful visage. Mjolnir leaps to his hand, its runes flaring as if alive, and Thor swings, the hammer's strike felling Tim in a single blow, the giant's throne splintering beneath him. The hall erupts in chaos, giants scrambling for weapons, but Thor is a storm unleashed, Mjolnir crashing through their ranks like lightning through a forest. Loki, quick to adapt, slips through the melee, his laughter sharp as he dodges flailing giants. Thor's vengeance is swift and merciless, the whole stone walls cracking under Mjolnir's fury. Within moments, Titoam's kin lie defeated, their boast silenced, and the hammer's power restored to its rightful wielder. The air grows still, the feast's chaos replaced by the echo of Thor's triumph, as he stands, Mjolnir raised, a god reclaimed. The stone hall of Tioam's Jotunheim's stronghold lies in ruin, its tables overturned, its torches guttering in the aftermath of Thor's wrath. Mjolnir, the mighty hammer, hums in Thor's grip, its runes glowing faintly as the thunder god stands amidst the fallen giants, his red beard flecked with dust, his eyes blazing with triumph. Him, the giant king, and his kin are no more, their audacious theft of Mjolnir punished by Thor's unrelenting fury. Loki, the trickster, emerges from the shadows, his handmaid's gown torn but his grin as sharp as ever, delighting in the chaos their ruse has wrought. The air, once thick with ale and laughter, now carries the tang of smoke and the weight of victory, as the balance of power shifts back to Asgard. Thor turns to Loki, his voice a low rumble. "Your plan held, trickster," he grudges, hoisting Mjolnir over his shoulder, "but mock this day, and you'll taste my hammer." Loki bows, his eyes twinkling with mischief, wise enough to hold his tongue, for now. The whole silence is broken only by the crackle of dying fires and the distant howl of Jotunheim's winds. The god's deception has succeeded, Mjolnir reclaimed, and Asgard's strength restored. Thor strides toward the great doors, his steps heavy with purpose, while Loki follows, already spinning tales of their exploit to embellish his own role. The pair departs the shattered hall, leaving Jotunheim's cliffs behind as they ascend toward Asgard's golden realm. The stars above gleam like scattered jewels, and Mjolnir's weight in Thor's hand is a promise of order renewed. The god's victory is complete, but Loki's restless mind already seeks the next spark of mischief, even as they near the safety of home. The golden meadows of Asgard shimmer under a dawn sky, the air soft with the scent of dew as Thor and Loki return from Jotunheim, their mission complete. Mjolnir, the mighty hammer, rests securely in Thor's grip, its runes catching the first light, a symbol of Asgard's restored strength. Thor strides into the god's great hall, his red beard bristling with pride, the tattered remnants of his bridal gown discarded for his familiar armor. Loki trails behind, his handmaid's guise shed, his sly smile hinting at tales he'll spin to burnish his role in the triumph. The gods gather, their faces alight with relief. Freyja, radiant in her jewels, nods approvingly, her necklace Brisingamen gleaming once more at her throat. The theft of Mjolnir, Tioam's bold demand, and the giant's defeat are already becoming legend, a story to echo through Asgard's halls. Thor raises Mjolnir, his voice booming like thunder. The hammer is ours, and Jotunheim's pride is broken. The gods cheer, their voices a chorus of victory, while Loki bows theatrically, basking in the moment's glow. The balance of the realms is restored, the giant's threat quelled, but the trickster's restless mind surely stirs with new schemes, ever a spark in Asgard's order. For now, peace reigns, and the gods feast, their laughter ringing under the starlit roof. The halls of Asgard grow quiet as the feast fades, the fire's embers casting a gentle glow. The stars above twinkle, a canopy of calm, and Mjolnir rests at Thor's side, its power a silent guardian. The tale of Loki's cunning and Thor's might settles into the night, a story to cradle listeners into dreams. I hope you have enjoyed this legendary Norse tale. Let the golden light of Asgard linger in your mind, its meadows stretching soft and endless under a twilight sky. The clang of Mjolnir, the echo of Thor's triumph, and Loki's sly laughter drift away, like leaves on a quiet stream, carrying you toward rest. The gods' realm is safe, its balance restored, and you, too, are safe, wrapped in the warmth of this ancient tale. Let the stars above Asgard guide you, their gentle gleam a promise of peace. The night is kind, the world still, and sleep waits, ready to fold you in its tender embrace. Drift now, carried by whispers of myth, into a slumber deep and serene.